Good morning, people. While waiting on the backing fabric for my Gladys quilt, I'd like to show you what's on my cutting table today. But first, a history of how these scraps came to be. So here's a portion of my first quilt. The label, beautifully embroidered by the quilter Norma Reel, documents the pattern name and writer Donna Jordan, whose videos taught me and many others so much about making quilts, and also the years in which it was started and finished. The story behind this goes back a few months prior when my daughter told me she wanted to make me a quilt. At the time, I didn't know anything about fabrics and designers, so she sent me a few examples of fabrics she thought I might like. I immediately fell in love with the K-Facet collective fabrics, and needless to say, life got in the way and I still don't have my daughter-made quilt, but her love of quilting and creating sparked a fire in me that started my passion for making my own quilts. I had to Google search for the fabric stores near me since I was new to this craft. I must have chosen the pattern first and beelined to the fabric store to select the fabrics. It was toward the end of COVID lockdowns and stock was limited, what with all the new sewists and making of masks. I went straight to the K-Facet rack and was in heaven with all the beautiful and colorful fabrics to choose from. I bought the last KFC jelly roll for the 9 patches and a variety of brights for the larger squares. I had planned to use white for the background, but stock was limited, so I went with black and as suggested by the experienced clerk that helped me. Now that you know the history of my first quilt, let me tell you about the leftovers. On my cutting table and ironing board are some of the fabrics I'll be using in my next project. Notice the K-Facet collective, which is referenced in my first quilt. Last night I started cutting strips I'll be using in the denim duo quilt written by Rhoda of Sewing Through Fog. She is a master of using thrifted blue jeans to make quilts, clothing, bags, and other creative items. If you're interested in recycled fabrics, you need to check out her website, sewingthroughfog.com, and her Instagram page, Sewing Through Fog. I'm making layout 2, as you see here, and notice those little tiny strips. That's what I'm cutting today. I've already cut the larger pieces, all cut from thrifted men's shirts. Notice how several of these are pieced together from the scraps from the initial cutting of the large blocks. Because using shirts or thrifted clothing limits you to only what's on each shirt, sewing those scraps together to make more usable fabric allows you to take advantage of as much of that fabric as possible. Even though you'll only see half of what you see here after the seam allowances, just look at how these little strips are going to enhance the beauty of this quilt. I got a lot of mileage from the fabric purchased for my first quilt. I'd been saving the leftovers for just the right project, so when my daughter announced the engagement of my grandson and the bride liked bright colors, I knew right away I'd be using those leftovers. You might recognize some of those fabrics in the individual blocks, and I still have plenty left over. The backing and the beautifully embroidered label made by the quilter Theodora Pounds. So that's it for today's video. I was expecting to make it a little bit shorter, but sometimes I just fall down that rabbit hole. Hope you guys are having a great day.